Welcome to Subscription Prescription, the podcast where you get the information you need to scale your subscription program. Hello and welcome to another dose of Subscription Prescription, the podcast where we help you figure out everything related to D2C subscriptions. I'm especially excited for today's guest. Oh, I should say, I am your host, Matthew Holman. See, we all forget part of our intros from time to time, but I'm excited to be joined by Hattie Gilpin. She's the Director of Operations at Wellbel and one of the founders of HAM, a new analytics solution on the market. Hattie, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely. I think it's always kind of fun when I'm interviewing people, and I wonder if you're a listener at home, like, all right, Matt, how well do you know Hattie or not? And I will just say that Hattie and I have been on Slack together for, I feels like at least a year almost, but at least
definitely at least a year. Yeah.
Right. So we've communicated on quite a bit, collaborated on several things. And honestly, I don't know why I didn't think about inviting you earlier, because when I reached out a couple of weeks ago, it just seemed like kind of silly. Like, I haven't had you on the show. So I'm glad you could come on.
Long time coming.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd love for you to share just a little bit. Let's start with Wellbel. We'll talk about HAM just a little bit, but please share with everybody a little bit more about your background, how you got into like the DTC space and what you're up to now.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to give everyone insights on Wellbel, we're a hair, skin, and nail supplement. We just launched shampoo and conditioner, in May. So it's crazy how time flies. We are going on 5 years, and we're predominantly subscription based. We're like 87% subscriptions. We play really heavy in that ballpark. And then how I got into e-commerce, I can give you the long version or the short version.
The long version.
All right. So the long version is, initially when I graduated college, I moved to New York. I thought I wanted to be in hospitality and develop hotels. I learned quickly that I did not want to do that. I guess the 20s are where you learn what you don't want to do. I ended up going to the GIA, and I'm a gemologist, as a fun fact. And I launched a jewelry company. I got a job with an amazing jeweler in New York City. And that was sort of my first intro into e-commerce. I was, of course, running her e-commerce store. I was running my own. And I just sort of fell in love with it. And then how I ended up at Wellbel and in the subscription space was actually, Wellbel was founded by, at the time, she was my exec coach. And she wanted to bring me on to build out their ops, obviously within jewelry, within all of those things, like ops and like supply chain is a really big piece of it. I ended up at Wellbel, and it was one of the best decisions I've made for my career. I love Wellbel. It's been such an honor I was their first or their second hire. So I'm their oldest employee today. And it's been such a privilege and an honor and so much fun to be able to be a part of building such an incredible company.
Well, and so it sounds like you're a doer, right? Because you're out starting your own brand, getting stuff done, doing it yourselves, and then so ending up at a brand because it was like, obviously it's been the right choice. And that also is I think explains to me a lot of like how a director of operations decides they want to start an analytics platform like HAM, right? Is because you like diving in and solving problems. So I'd love to hear about the genesis. Tell us a little bit about what HAM is,
absolutely,
and the genesis of that, and then I have some more questions last for you.
Yeah, I love it. So basically, as an operator at Wellbel, it was all of our data was split across different platforms. The original pain is when we migrated from WooCommerce to Shopify, we lost all of our historical data. I went to a lot of different providers, asked them if they could stitch it. Some said they couldn't, some said they could, but then when it all came down to it, they actually couldn't get it across the finish line. So that was the first pain point. And then additionally, it's just the amount of hours that I spent exporting from different platforms, stitching things together myself, plotting out different things within Excel so I could actually see the data, how it was useful for us as a business. It just took too much time. And given how big subscription brands are, I just couldn't believe that there wasn't a better solution out there. I mean, there are solutions that do a really great job for e-commerce out on the market, of course, but I just felt like with subscription data specifically and with the recurring revenue model, getting that downstream data was just too difficult. And so I decided it was like that frustration of like data stitching, pivot tables, et cetera, ultimately led to ham.
It's so funny. We have a pretty large client that we helped assist with the migration recently, who was actually just asking us, hey, like on this new subscription platform, we can't see year over year. And I was like, well, yeah, you migrated.
You also can understand like the churn,
she said like, well, hey, how do we do that? And I was like, well, let me check. First of all, thankfully, we did save your export data and we happened to export all of it, not just the last year. So we have all of your data from your past platform. But just so you know, like this is a really crappy problem. You can build some past charts you can compare to.
Yeah,
so I actually will have to throw this episode to her when it comes out so she can hear and see a little bit more about ham, because the idea that you could stitch data together, I know is part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because so Wellbel did a second migration after we moved to Shopify to a different subscription provider, and we just couldn't lose that another year's worth of data, like we couldn't, specifically like for like year over year, but also understanding like the churn trends, like all the retention stuff, all of those pieces, you lose it all. And so that was not an option for Wellbell. So, ham is born, and we were thankfully able to migrate and, all groovy.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. So with Wellbel, you mentioned like 87% of your orders or subscriptions. I'd be curious, can you unpack that a little bit more? Is that because, are you is it a subscription only option, or maybe kind of explore it a little bit more? As somebody who doesn't have any hair, I am, not a big shampoo guy, but I would love to hear more about that offer strategy and how you're ending up with so many subscribers.
Yeah, absolutely. So to answer your first question, we do not only offer subscriptions, we do offer a single jar. In addition, we offer a 3-month and 6-month bundle that has that non-subscription option.
Okay.
And I think the reason, truthfully, why we have ended up with such a high subscription base, just I'm going to take you on like one little story that's going to tie back. Okay. So Wellbell, for the first 2.5, 3 years, we didn't pay for paid. We grew completely off of like our affiliate program, off of influencers, off of those pieces. But one really incredible thing is one of our founders, Stacy, she actually speaks with every person who tags us on Instagram. So, she was able to understand really what our community was looking for, what they were struggling with, what problem we were solving, to really basically understand like the PMF of what our product was solving. And to take our product, you have to be on it for at least 3 months to start seeing results. So it's not like a hydration packet where you can taste it immediately, you can feel better immediately, or it's not like that quote unquote like Amazon effect. And so we really encourage people to subscribe. Not only are they saving, but also it really helps them get to that consistency and get to that result. Because like, frankly, if somebody only wants to take it for 1 month, we tell them, if you're only going to take it for 1 month, you shouldn't take it, because you won't actually get to the results that you're hoping to see. So we invest a lot in education and a lot in transparency. Is really where we spend a lot of time investing. Of course, like we've strategically placed our buy box, and we have, the 3-month subscription auto-selected, like pre-selected. So we have been strategic in that sense, which of course helps. But I do think the education piece is really what also helps people commit to the subscription versus like buying the one. Like I know when I buy products that could be a subscription, I actually don't subscribe. I'm that OTP repeat purchaser. But I think so.
I am too, Hattie. Actually, ironically enough, I do have a couple things I subscribe to via Amazon, but I just will buy it when I need it. I'm curious, as you're saying that, like, because it does sound too like a little bit of clever psychology in like, don't take this if you're only going to buy it for a month, like don't buy it because you're not going to see it's not going to work. But there are a lot of brands that have a lot of subscription products that have that same, you need to be on it for 6 weeks or 2 to 3 months to really feel or notice any differences. And so everybody is trying to do that, right? Like I
Yeah.
work with a number of brands where we're trying to improve that. And it's not always that easy. So I'm kind of curious, like it sounds
Yeah.
like too with Stacy, like learning really about how to talk about it, what's really important.
Yeah.
But I'd be curious to hear more about like how you're onboarding or educating people after they've made that purchase. Because I would assume still, even if somebody's as we all know as consumers, like even though they went through the website, they went through a funnel, they might have even gotten an email or two. That doesn't mean that they paid that much attention.
100%.
How are you educating or setting the table so that somebody doesn't cancel like, a couple weeks in saying this is crap. It's not doing anything for me.
I think again it like leads in. So when depending on what product and what variant you buy, you go through, like a very specific educational flow. Obviously we have very intentional touch points. We try to do, believe it or not, we write a lot of blogs and we lead people to our blogs, and we actually have
that.
very high like click-through rates, very high engagement on those blogs. They're one of our most highly engaged blogs. But we just try to, obviously there's a fine line of how many times you email someone and how many touch points you have with someone before you become a pretty annoying brand where somebody just like basically puts you into their spam. So there's that fine line to walk, but we really hammer in like the education. We hammer in like the before and afters, like the results, basically showing like month 1, month 6. So people can really understand that. And look, we do have people that see results sooner, but at the same time, like as a consumer, like that can also be discouraging if you're getting to that earlier mark and you're not seeing those results. It can be a bit discouraging. So we really like educational content, like tricks, like if you don't want to take the capsule, put it in your smoothie, put it in your yogurt, and really showing like really leaning into the community before and after testimonials so people can really hear it from others and not just hear it from the brand that's selling them.
No, I love that.
What do you see work?
Oh,
Out of curiosity.
It's definitely setting the stage. That's, I think, one of the most important things. And, the other thing is like, I think a lot of brands worry that, hey, I sent that email yesterday. I don't need to say that again in the second email. But the truth is you kind of do need to reinforce that time component over and over again, before and afters, testimonials. And then really always just kind of like leaning into that aspirational element, like, like this is the life that you want. This is what you're trying to get back. This is how that you unlock that. I'm curious, like, what is too many emails for you? Like in the first month of us subscribing to a product, like, or even maybe in the first 10 days, like I think you could send an email almost every day. But
okay, so talk me through that. I'm curious. Talk me through. So I subscribe. Talk me through my first 10 days.
Yeah,
is that when it arrives, or is that leading up to the delivery?
A little bit of both. So I think, say like an average delivery time in the US is like 3 to 5 days from like fulfillment and like most shipping centers. Obviously stuff can be longer than that. So the first couple of days before delivery are all about like welcome and some education, right? Like you're thinking through like, here's my, here's what you're getting in your subscription. Here's what other people are saying. Maybe an email from the founder, maybe an email about our science or something like that, right? And then once the product has been delivered, you're making sure you're leaning into like how to use the product, making sure that's a really positive first engagement interaction experience. And then depending on a product like yours, I might follow up with extra content because I want to make sure like maybe the following day you're getting two about ways to incorporate that as part of your routine, how other people have felt when they first start taking it. So I just think that a lot of it can be, and then you can follow up with additional content, additional ideas. The idea being, I think we forget sometimes, like as email marketers, we're worried about spamming somebody, but as purchasers or consumers, especially with a lot of subscription products, we're excited. Like I'm buying that.
Well, that's what I was about to say. I loved how when that purchase is made, you really take advantage of, let's be honest, like you order something, you get that confirmation email, you're so excited, you're going back, you're tracking it. That's like really like such a pivotal moment in the customer's journey. So that makes so much sense. And it's such a smart thing for brands to do, is to sit there and build that excitement, build in that education, because it's probably psychologically when somebody is going to be the most attentive to your email as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And then remembering that, like, again, even great brands have like 60 maybe even 70% open rates on some of those emails, there's still a lot of people that aren't reading it, right? So
Yeah.
that's why I think it's important to repeat it. So I'm just curious, like for you, is there a number where like within 10 days, it's too many emails or?
No, I didn't have a specific number. No, I think my biggest piece when I say that is just making sure when you send an email, it's not just for the sake of sending the email.
Right.
It's more so when you send an email, having a reason that you're sending it and being intentional with sending it, not just sending it so they see your name in your inbox, is what I meant by that. Because I do think, I get it some emails and I'm just like, I'm not sure what, obviously, like I spend a lot of time actually looking at emails that come, especially from specific brands. And sometimes I'm like, I'm not really sure what the point of this email was. And that's more so my thought there.
There's always funny examples with like holidays. What was that?
Yeah.
I can't think of it, but where, like a moving company, like sending out an email on like Christmas or something. Like, I don't know. It is just funny sometimes to see what brands are doing, but I'm curious for you, is it, because that intentionality, I think is 100% right.
Mm-hmm.
With Wellbell, are you, because so many people are subscribers, I guess it's a little bit different for you because a lot of brands don't want to email not subscribers like campaign stuff, but are you segmenting them out, or how are you thinking about, like, let's say with the new product release with a shampoo and conditioner, right? Like I'm assuming you did a launch into your subscriber base first because that's a huge part of your audience, right?
Of course. And there was also, so we also did like VIP where they also got early access. They had, like their specific like discount code. We tried to really make it a moment because a lot of our community, I mean, they love our brand. Like Stacy has spoken to lots of them personally and like knows them personally. And it's like so incredible, like what a community that she's built. And so we try to never lose touch of how personal we get with our community. So we never want them to think that, they're an afterthought or, we want them to have that moment with our brand. And as we like think about new product launches, things like that, like letting them be a part of that development, letting them try the products, give us feedback on the products, and really like having them be a part of the journey with us.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
How do you, like, so you mentioned like Stacy, like talking to everybody that interacts with on Instagram. What kind of information are you collecting after purchase? Are you doing post purchases? Are you doing surveys, check-ins? Like, I'm kind of curious to hear how you're gathering like qualitative data and what you're doing with that data.
Yeah, so we do a post-purchase survey. And I forget where I read this or who I was speaking with, but I thought it was so interesting. I'll Slack you when it comes to me. When we hang up, I'm sure it'll come to me. But basically, there is a brand that I heard about, and I thought this was so fascinating when it comes to post-purchase surveys. They actually basically run their entire attribution model, their entire paid model based off of their post-purchase survey. And I thought that was quite fascinating that depending on where people say they're coming in from, that is where they go and then they put the majority of their spend. They don't get into like the whole nitty-gritty of the attribution game, and they just look at their post-purchase survey to drive basically their entire strategy. And I thought that was so fascinating. But to answer your question, so we do have our post-purchase survey that we use, and then we also will touch base with people, see how they're going in email, and then also ask people, when like, hey, like, how's it going? Like, what are you experiencing, et cetera. And then we also prompt people at that point to leave a review for us as well, like later down the road, like around like 4-ish months we do.
Yeah, so I'm curious, what do you get? What is the Wellbell team doing when you're consuming that information, like post-purchase information, or how things going? Like, how is that directing like other strategy or tactics?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think a lot of that also like tying that back in with Gorgeous, like within our customer support, we spend a lot of time looking at that because if you read that data specifically, like the Gorgeous and the post-purchase surveys, you can see how you're winning, but you can also see where your holes are so you can actually improve things. So we spend a lot of time, we'll go through, our customer support. And if like we're continuing to get the same question, we're clearly doing a really bad job on our website. explaining what said question is. And that means we need to go, maybe it's an FAQ, maybe it's a landing page, maybe, it's moving like the copy around so people actually see it, make it more visible. So we try to use it as a way for us to identify like where those holes are in the customer journey. It's like is where we really try to spend time looking at it. With the brands you work for, how do you utilize it?
Yeah, it's a lot of that. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, the most basic place to start is the cancellation survey, getting a lot of common feedback right there. But yes, I really like knowing for a lot of brands, like what other people have tried, if it's a product in a competitive space, what,
that's smart.
Something as simple. The simplest example is like protein. Is this like a meal replacement? Is this are you bulking? Are you supplementing calories? Like, trying to understand the consumer a little bit better.
Yeah.
But yes, as you mentioned, like the question one, that is kind of one of the biggest things, because it's always about how do I learn from why people are unhappy or why they're leaving, so that I can set up that experience. Like, I wanted to make the joke to interrupt you, is like, or write a 15th email that you get in 3 days.
Totally, exactly.
to answer that question.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's absolutely. It's like, hey, if a lot of people are having this problem, like that needs to be maybe in our welcome series.
Yeah. And I also wonder, from like even before they purchase, like sometimes we have customers reach out and they ask, questions about our product before they make a purchase. And I always wonder, and, I think I think it would be a really fascinating metric to have, like, of the people who haven't purchased before, that reach out to Gorgeous or Zendesk or reach out to your team and ask a question, of those people, how many of them then go back and make an actual first purchase? Like, do you lose them during that? You know what I mean? Like, I just think it's like, that's just really fascinating to me.
That is a really good one. I was thinking too, like, you mentioned your blog and how powerful that is. It's like, hey, a really common question for people that have already purchased, that can be a blog article, right? Yeah. Which then becomes a content as a lead gen as well, because you're actually answering a question that potential purchasers are curious about. And then, questions you're getting from pre-purchase people similarly, like it helps like answer those questions. I think sometimes we forget, even though we're all very clever marketers or clever people, like how simple it is to create content that answers questions, right? That helps with both retention, but actually on the acquisition side as well.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, we've talked about, I've been setting up this qualitative data question to get into quantitative data, right? So with Ham and others, like, I'm curious where do you see some intersection points between survey data or feedback that you get from customers and how you're seeing that on the quantitative side? Like,
yeah, absolutely. So I think what's really interesting is I'll talk about like where I spend a lot of time looking, because it's like, you look at the cancellation survey, it's, I have too much product, it's too expensive, it's too X, Y, and Z, whatever it may be, or I want to try something else, or I just don't like it, or I'm taking a break, or like I'm pregnant, all of those things that people, will say, or I'm traveling. And I think what's really interesting, and what we wanted to do with Ham, is allow brands, whether it's your case pack size, whether it's your billing cycle, whether it's being able to cut things down by different variants, and also the who of like creating certain timeframes of when you acquire these customers. Because I think what's really interesting is, maybe on the acquisition and on like the landing page side of things, maybe you're pushing people to the wrong case pack. Maybe people shouldn't be buying the 12 pack, maybe they should be buying the 8 pack, or, we really try to let people slice and dice and break things down and sort of see that downstream data of what's happening after that first purchase. Like, that is the ultimate goal, is, so you've acquired this customer, this is what they came in on, now what are they doing?
Yeah, I love that.
How do you...
Well, I was just gonna say, what's a report that you're looking at in Ham regularly that maybe is a little bit different than what you've seen before with other subscription analytics?
Yeah, so I spend a lot of time looking at retention by it's called retention by segment, and basically what it allows me to do. And there's other reports that support it, but basically it allows me to pick a point in time, slice it down even more, whether it's discount code, billing cycle, a case pack and actually monitor the performance of the custom cohort that I made. So if I want to compare different influencer performances, if I want to compare different sale periods, if I want to compare different variants at a very specific point in time, I spend a lot of time looking at that. Obviously, Black Friday just happened. So that's like a really interesting cohort that, I want to get to know and I want to understand. And also this January cohort, I mean, I'm sure for most supplement, beauty, wellness brands, this is a really popular month for all of us. So what does a consumer look like that comes in during said January offer if you're doing one versus a consumer that comes in June? So that's where I have been spending a lot of my time recently, is just understanding, I guess we can call it seasonality, but the trends of the subscribers during like different seasonalities and different times of year.
And are you doing also? Are you doing this so that, like, say you can see, because it's a question I wonder about or worry about, like where we did this really aggressive offer, it was really, really successful, but that cohort creators compared to ones we didn't do that offer to. Does that mean we evaluate not doing that type of offer in the future if we see that it's really bad? Or is it more like affirmation that, like, hey, actually this is working within our model and our payback period? Is that some of the rationale of looking at those segments?
Exactly. Because I mean, I think it's like, okay, like we could, like we are a brand. It's like, we could go offer like this extremely steep discount and then we could acquire X amount of customers and then they all turn really quickly. I think there's like such a sweet spot. I also think a lot of it depends on like what is the goal of the business and where is that business and like its life cycle as a whole. But that's exactly why I sit there and look at those things.
Okay. I'd be curious because we get all kinds of different listeners on the show, whether they're new to subscriptions, been in it for a long time, technical side, agency side, brands. I'd be curious for somebody who is building an analytics solution and somebody who lives in analytics, what are a couple of things that have helped you understand what to look at better without feeling like really overwhelmed? Because I was on a call with somebody who's fairly new to subscriptions today, and she was just saying, I don't know how to look at these analytics. Like, what does this really mean? Yeah. And I will just say, as a not a gripe, because it's not fair, because I've been on the product side. We're all just trying to roll out what we think people will want.
Right.
But we often see just like, report after report after report after report after report, when in reality, I'm looking at 3 reports. Not.
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. So I'm just going to go through like the onboarding process at Ham because I think it'll answer your question. So when you come onto the platform, I do an onboarding call with everyone and I actually build them out custom dashboards like based off of what they want to see. Because as an operator, I can say like exactly like you, I go in and I look at like the same 3 reports. If I have 5 minutes, what do I go look at? And then when I need to really dive into something, like that's when I'll really go like dive in and get to the nitty gritty. But so I spend a lot of time building reports for the brands that are coming on just so they don't have that overwhelming feeling. Because there's a curve for analytics. There's some people, like you said, that complete data nerds. I mean, I'm one of them. They absolutely love it. They think it's so much fun. But then there's other people and they're like, this is a bit overwhelming. I'm not sure what I'm looking at. I'm not sure what to do here. So really trying to make it so it can fit for everyone. And they have, that onboarding experience and that white glove experience. And also if they ever have questions, of course, they're always in Slack. But I really try to go in there and have it like turnkey for them.
And so, yeah, again, like kind of coming back to this idea of like, what are some tips or pointers for somebody who is feeling overwhelmed by analytics? And you can't say go by Ham.
No, I'm not. I wouldn't say that anyway. Yeah.
FTC.
Yeah. I mean, but are you ready to go Ham? But
but you're really curious of like how you say you have a friend who's started working at a subscription brand for the first time. They come from clothing and now they're in supplements. How do you, what's a couple minute crash course in what people should be worrying about on the subscription analytics side
So I think I would tell you if we were sitting down at coffee and you were not this, a subscription genius, but I would say, I would tell you, what are customers purchasing? And then how long are they staying? And then of said customers that are coming in, like understanding what are those key drop-off points, because those are the first issues that you should be addressing. So maybe it's rebill 2, maybe it's rebill 5, depending on the brand and the product, but understanding that. And then of course, like once you identify, like at a high level, once you identify, it's month 3 and 6, then you can come back and you can be like, all right, like let me get a little bit more granular. Let me look at it by case pack. Let me look at it by variant. I would just so they could slowly get their feet wet without, being extremely overwhelmed and not knowing where to go next. What would you tell someone? What would you tell me?
I mean, I would add the information in a cancellation survey, and
Yes, smart.
I like telling people to be a little bit more specific when you can, right? Like, too expensive is actually, I really don't like that answer. It's generally the most popular one. I have too much product and too expensive are the two most common.
So how do you replace those? How do you replace those responses?
So that's the thing, is too much product is often, and I'm keeping it fairly high level. Depending on the very specific brand, we could get really specific, but too much product is generally, I never started using the product, so I have too much.
Yep.
Or I bought the wrong amount that I thought I needed for some reason, right? And you could go a little bit further saying like something changed in my life, right? But it's like, hey, I thought 2 scoops a day of my protein powder would last me 30 days. It's not, it's lasting me 60 days, right? So that's that second one. The reason on that one that I like breaking it out in those two is because the first one is an issue of they never use the product. So now I want to create that's good to know, because I'm going to now build out I'm going to try to get some more information and try to get a little bit better into my onboarding, welcoming series, unboxing stuff. But also I can give them a really aggressive offer. If, you have too much product, well, hey, here's a delay and skip discount of like 30%.
Yeah.
Stick with us, get back out there, try it out. Here's some tips. Here's a blog article. Whereas if somebody has too much product on their own frequency, I don't necessarily need them to skip. I need them to adjust the cadence of their order to match their consumption. And then similarly with too expensive, that one's generally like either, again, I'm simplifying into 2 categories of like my life has changed in some way. I can't afford this. But realistically, too expensive is I don't see the value of paying this money for this. And then that can be a little bit more of like, I'm not using this enough to pay this much for it. Right. So, and again, that information lets you get better at how you bring people in and get better at how you keep people from going.
Absolutely.
But what you said was, I think, a really elegant way of putting it is like, you're starting with understanding like common drop-off points. And then once you get a handle on that, you start to go in a little bit deeper. What are the drop-off points for these different variants, these different sizes? Somebody prepaid for 3 months versus they prepaid for 6 months. How are those individuals or cohorts performing better? And I think that's where the magic happens, right? Because then you start to notice that like, oh, wait a second. This one little cohort in here is actually outperforming these others. We should be tweaking our offer a little bit to get more people to pick this, because it's not getting prioritized very much. And that has such a impactful profit for most businesses. I'm kind of curious.
Can I ask you a quick question, actually?
Sure.
Yeah, so I'm curious. So when you look at like the cancellation flow, and there's like, like I have too much product, I'm going to offer a skip and I'm going to offer a discount, or I'm going to offer a reschedule. How do you decide what amount of time you are going to skip? Like, what do you look at to then get to like, I'm going to let them skip 2 weeks versus 4 versus 6, et cetera? Like, how do you land there?
Honestly, a lot of that is based off what the brand says. So the irony with a lot of what I do and what we do is like the founder will download like, years of experience and customer conversations.
Right.
And then I will say, well, that's not reflected in what you're doing.
Right.
Like a founder might say like, yeah, the biggest problem we have is that people don't know that the backside of the applicator stick doesn't work the same way as the front side. And that just causes people all these problems. And I'm like, why don't you have an insert with the applicator that explains that? And then when I say something like that, the founder goes,
huh, I never thought of that.
Right. So that's where I joke a lot of times, Hattie, is that my job is just connecting dots for people that just don't see that there's a connection there. But with the frequency adjustment it's part of it also is like is copy, like how you're using it. So something as simple as like protein powder in a scoop, explain to people how many scoops are in a bag. So a cup of coffee, or you're trying to explain how many cups are in a bag.
Wow.
So you can do that. Otherwise, I try to default to what feels like 1 to 2 or 3 cycles. If it's maybe 2 weeks, then a tactic that we've been doing a little bit, and that I know other brands are testing more and more, is kicking the initial renewal rate so that it happens. So like say you order something, it takes 5 days to get it on average. It's a 30-day supply. You do send a billing reminder 3 days before the order comes, right? So 23 days later, so 3 weeks later, somebody's getting a billing notification. And so you might have half of the bag still. And so some is actually kicking the initial renewal rate out like a week or two. So their 30 days is they're actually going through more product to do that. So it does depend on the product and the industry. Like, to figure that out, I think.
But I do think that,
unfortunately, it's very much like a little bit fly by night.
Yeah, because it's interesting that you say that. So we expanded. We were initially in one warehouse. We expanded to we added 2 more on. So we're in 3 warehouses. But when we did that, our transit times, on average, things get there in like 2 to 3 days. So they get there quite quickly. So when we made that change, we also then operationally needed to change how quickly things were arriving, because of exactly what you're saying, where somebody could open, their jar and they're like, oh, I'm getting this billing reminder, but I have, half a jar left. So that is something you have to be very cognizant about. And I think that's a really, really, that's not something I feel like that is commonly discussed or thought about just simply like, when is it shipping? When is it arriving? And when is that billing reminder going out? How much product do they have at that time? That's brilliant.
So I'll say this. You've asked me enough questions. I'll talk about something I'm doing, because I normally I don't want to talk about what I do, is talking about what you do. But my partner, David Bradley, and I had built a solution called Next Time.
Okay.
That integrates with a few different subscription platforms right now, where it actually allows you to see the expected delivery date within the billing reminder or within the portal. So that
brilliant.
Right. Because normally, so any operator gets this right away. It's hard sometimes to explain or to sell it to like somebody who's not dealing with really perishable goods. But the idea being is, once an order is processed, tracking and all this stuff is really easy, like after ships, wonderments of the world, right? Like you can see when you're going to get it. But how do I know when I'm going to get it based on the billing reminder? Because there could be fulfillment times, right, for lead times, and then there's shipping, and depending on where I live, that transit time might be different. And if you're telling me that I've got 2 days left, I might cancel my subscription and go order off Amazon, right? Or if it's something like I might be out of town, or I'm not sure like how much I'm going to have available for something that's really important, you want to know what day you're actually going to get it. And then when somebody makes an adjustment to their billing reminder, or say their next order date, they're actually changing their delivery date. And then we just backfill the logic to tell the brand right through technology when the order date should process based on that customer preference. Anyway, so I thought you might have featured that. It's kind of
brilliant. No, I mean, that is just, I think that's something that is such like, I think like a low hanging fruit, in a sense of, it's just you place an order, your order ships, maybe it takes 5 days. But then if you think about when that rebill reminder goes out, the customer probably has 14 days left of product, or, maybe not that drastically, but that is such an incredible solution that could be so impactful for so many brands.
I just
think it's brilliant.
The more you can steal a page out of Amazon's book, right? Or people want to know when 100%. Something's going to get delivered. They don't want to know when it's going to process. Is a big
100%. Wow. I love I had no idea. I'm excited to learn more about it.
I'll send you some info.
Please.
I'm curious, kind of like a final question as we kind of wrap up, is something I ask a lot of people that are on the retention side is tell everybody listening at home a little bit more about the team makeup at Wellbell, because
Yeah.
you've talked your role as director of operations, but
Yeah.
so much of what you have said is evaluating what is happening so that the brand can make better decisions around growth. And I'm just curious here, what does a team makeup look like at Wellbell with acquisition versus operations or retention?
Yeah.
Right? Like how closely are you on the same meetings? Like, I'd just be curious to hear a little bit more from that, because I think a lot of brands need to hear or could do a better job of this.
Yeah, so we are a very small team. So there is 8 of us, so we're a small team. And because we are so small, it's so important that we work very closely together. So we do spend a lot of time collaborating, a lot of time communicating, whether it's collaborating growth with supply chain, like, hey, like this is like our projections, we're running like these sales, this is how like the performance is going. Like, obviously that's really important, because all of a sudden, like if we're going, if we're going ham and like going crazy on the growth side, like we also need to be keeping in mind like our supply chain and our lead times. Is it a new product? All of those things, but also then understanding on the retention side, like, hey, like actually we need to be promoting like the 8-pack versus like the 12-pack. So I think it's a machine that has to all work together and try to be, in harmony, try to get it in harmony. So we spend a lot of time collaborating, working together. And, I like to think we're really good at it, but I do think, you can always be better at it. But, I think we're so fortunate. I'm so lucky to work with such an incredible team. I learn something from them every day. And I
All of that.
it's been such, like we're all learning from each other. We all show up like trying to be solution driven. Like, I think we just are so fortunate because we have such a strong team.
And the word collaborate, the collaboration and, like you said, talking just kept coming up for me.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. Whatever that structure looks like, it has to be collaborative. Otherwise, you're going to end up making a decision.
It breaks, or you can't keep up with your own success. And, of course, like what a bummer, and something that can be totally preventable. Right. So
100%.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious because you've obviously I feel like this is a question that you ask to different people. So I'm curious, like, is there anything that you've heard from other people that you've spoken to where you're like, that's a really, really great idea. Like more teams should be operating in that way?
Yeah, we had Joe Siegel on a while ago, and he's worked with Feastables and a couple other brands, and he brought up. The reason I bring him up is I just really like the way he kind of explained it. Is retention is so much often just scrambling to fit a marketing campaign need, or hey, Martin Luther King Day, President's Day is coming up. What special, the growth team wants to run the special, so we need some emails to go out that do that. And the problem is that you don't get enough time that and a general makeup. This is what I've seen, is that so many resources are on acquisition and growth teams and those agencies. You will often have a mid-level retention marketer with a junior level retention marketer, or maybe a VA or somebody just working so much heads down that they don't have enough bandwidth or capacity to do strategic thinking and strategic. So something like Joe was suggesting is, you need to bring in a leader on the retention side that can help shape strategy, that can notice like what you shared. Hey, we're seeing this this is outperforming, this is underperforming. Like, hey, we should be prioritizing the 8-pack versus the 12-pack. So that's kind of like how I would say is just looking at how you can just resource retention a little bit more, because it is a huge profit center. It's just kind of one of those classic. It's just one of those things. It's like, I don't want to bang on the DDC bro culture or anything like that too much, but it's sometimes just feels a little bit like we're all so obsessed with growth, but then we get really, really mad when we don't keep the people we've acquired, and we don't fix that. We just continually get mad at it. I think is just a limitation. We want to resource retention, and you'll see positive things happen on the bottom line, right?
Yeah, I think that's really well said. Really, really well said and very true.
Yeah. Well, Hattie, thank you so much for coming on the show. We're going to have a couple links in the show notes with a link to your LinkedIn. I think anybody that's interested in subscription offers, they should go check out Wellbell, but as well as Ham. So it'll be goham.io.
Yes.
And we'll also have a special offer in the newsletter for everybody if you're checking out this the week this comes out. So thank you again for coming on.
Thanks for having me. This was such a treat. This is such a great way to start the new year. Thank you.
Absolutely. And normally we like clipping these things up afterwards just for our guests, but I feel like you asked me some pretty good questions that I'm going to have to make sure I get clipped for myself.
I would say 10 out of 10.
You need to have your own podcast interviewing people, Hattie. You were doing a great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. That's it, everybody. Stay tuned next week for another dose of Subscription Prescription. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe so that you can get notified when new episodes come out each week on Tuesdays.